Punchline time. Let's talk about what the numbers come out as. Okay. Cost of generation for 50% carbon reduction with a natural gas grid is 6.3 cents a kilowatt hour. This has no cost of anything except for running the plants, the fuel for the plants, the operation and maintenance for the plants, and the transmission costs for the wind that comes in, and purchasing all of the capital. So all the plant costs are figured in here, amortized over 25 years. Everything is, all the upfront costs are in, and that's the curve I just showed you. Okay, so we can look at this, and these points correspond to this curve. So what we see is we start at 6.3 for a penny additional a kilowatt hour. Should the citizens of Boulder agree to pay that, you can get all the way down to about 70% carbon dioxide emissions reduction, and your penetration of renewables, and this is a real penetration of renewables, not a statutory, I get 1.25 or 1.5 times my kilowatt hours. Your real honest number of kilowatt hours generated from the renewables divided by total kilowatt hours consumed by Boulder is 40%, which I think is pretty impressive. Yep.
Does that include the cost of running the distribution grid?
No, that does not. We'll get there. That's this slide. Thank you. Good question.
And then also, I'm
This.
sorry. I have one question too. So the baseline of your 50% is using only existing PV
And hydro.
And not adding in the wind.
The wind comes in as we increase the renewables.
Okay, and as you add that, you're only adding in wind. You're not adding in additional solar.
No solar. So we tell Homer, give me the most cost-effective way to do this. So it starts out
that would be with wind.
It starts out with wind. Yeah, and I could go back and pull Homer up, and we could go into the scenario for each of these points, and we could see how much wind, how much solar, what size your gas turbines are, and so on. So it gives you the freedom, if you're really trying to design this like a grid designer would, to go in and say, okay, what if I want more solar? You could force it. You can also force more of these different mixes. We picked least cost. I think cost is very important. It's the reason I wanted to do this. I'd like to keep going because I don't want to kind of break off.
It's not clear from the chart what the mix of solar and wind is right there. Does that come up later?
No, I'm not going to talk about it later. This is a high-level talk. If you would like to talk with me afterwards to find what's at each of these points, I would be happy to walk you through. Tom probably better than me to go in and look at these points and say, okay, under this constraint, for this cost, how much solar and how much wind. Tom, do you want to say something?
I just want to say, and it's reasonable not to talk about the mix right now because we made assumptions about the cost. If you make different assumptions, you'll get a somewhat different mix. We think that we made conservative ones, so we got these mixes, but solar may be cheaper next year, in which case,
the beautiful thing about phasing stuff in, and the beautiful thing about natural gas is if something's cheaper later, you just bring on more of that something that's cheaper and you burn less of your natural gas. Right? You need all that natural gas capability for your reliability to start with. So buy it. It's cheap capital to buy that natural gas plant. Gas is expensive. Almost all the driver of gas costs are burning the gas. So as your renewables get cheaper, bring them on the grid, turn down your generators. Gas does not have the problem like coal does that you can't turn it down and still maintain good efficiency.
And what price did you use for PV?
This is $3.50 a watt, assuming somebody will get the investment tax credit monetized. So I want to bring,
just quickly, so the grid is already capable of regulating, the natural gas versus the renewables, like in terms of, if the wind stops blowing, right?
The people who operate those plants are absolutely capable of doing that. That's correct. So again, this is that same carbon emissions range, but it assumes 300 million in startup costs as if it were a municipality, 8 million a year in administration costs. You'll see a higher number out there, which is 13 million, but that 13 million assumes 5 million for public purposes, and we're saying, nope, we want the grid to be what the grid costs. If you want public purpose money, then that needs to be accounted separately. So it makes a 0.3 cent a kilowatt hour difference if you go from 8 million in admin costs to 13 million. So we know what it is. We've looked at it.
How does that compare to what we think Xcel spends on operating the distribution
Why? I have no idea. I didn't come up with this number. You'll have to ask RBI. That number is from the city consultant reports. So both the 8 and the 13 million come from the reports released in June.
The 8 million refers to a particular period or
8 million per year?
per year?
Yep, per year. 7% bonds. So again, they might seem boring. You can see the shape of the curve's the same. We've just added in some financing cost each. But again, I think the message of hope here for me anyway is we can do a 50% carbon reduction. We can have a cost of energy that starts at 8.3 cents a kilowatt hour. That's the average cost of energy. And for a reference, Excel is 8.4 right now.
I might just to clarify, that 8 million is just the distribution system, not the whole system. We have O&M for the generation.
Right, so within, on the generation cost, the guys that work at the plant and the guys that leave the wind farms and the solar farm, that's all already accounted in that 6.3 cents. This is the $300 million to buy the grid, the distribution system in Boulder. It's to pay Excel for any stranded costs that they get, and it's to pay for legal fees. It's to pay for, the city estimates this number at $222 million. And we said we want to be conservative, we're going to put in 300, but the city assumes no stranded costs. We assume there will be some stranded costs.
Is there something in the administration for the maintenance of the distribution grid?
That's that 8 million.
So that, and that, is that kind of what they spend now?
That's what RBI says in their report. So if you want to go read the city reports, I just plucked that number, the 8 million, and then the 13, which is 8 plus 5. And Frank will talk more about this too. Frank's really going to give you some in-depth.
So that was an annual, the 8 million, but the other ones were total for the entire project.
This is a total cost,
Right.
paid once.
Right.
So 300 million scares people. Oh my God, that's a huge number. But remember, this utility is going to be collecting around 90 million a year in revenues. So that's just a little more than 3 years of a 30-year bond stream. So you have to put these numbers in perspective because it is a big number, but it will be bonded, and it's going to be compared to about 90 million a year coming in. So I'd like to keep moving.
So that 8 million was the annual cost.
Yes.
This is startup one time, 8 million is annual. It's to send the bills out. It's to have the linesmen go out when there's a transformer blow up and to repair the line.
Is there any charge for depreciation?
Frank's going to take care of that. Is that okay?
And is he also going to do the, if we get more stranded costs, like close to
I'll do that next slide.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, not next slide, it'll be 2 slides. What if natural gas costs rise? So if we doubled natural gas costs, so it's at the complete top end of the highest price we've seen for the last 10 years, and it goes there, and we're stuck with our system, how much is it going to cost? It's going to cost 11.4 cents, including the 300 million upfront, including the 8 million. So we go from 8.4, so we go up about 30-35% when we double our fuel costs. So everybody is afraid of this number. I don't think this is going to happen. I'm going to show you what the EIA thinks.
What's your current cost per MMBTU?
What do we have in the model, or
Yeah.
what? We have 5.30. 4. You guys are better than I am. So the reference case in 2035, that is a long way out. In today's dollars, that the EIA puts out is $7, which is compared to our $5.34 per BTU. If shale gas pans out to be high, then costs will stay about what they are now. And if it pans out to be low, it still goes up to significantly less than we've modeled. So everybody's going on, I want to know the worst case, I want to know the mid case, I want to know the block case. Okay, there they are. That's what EIA thinks of the cases, and in my presentation I've shown you the sensitivity to that. It doesn't go linearly, it's less than linear.